Welcome back to the Business Simple podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, Graeme Campbell from Agentary. Graeme is my business partner now at Agentary, which is really exciting. He's very entrepreneurial, super inspirational, someone that I've really enjoyed spending a lot of time with over the last couple of months as we've been setting things up. He's a fellow Porsche enthusiast, which definitely helps conversations flow. And yeah, he's someone who's done really cool things in the real estate videography space, someone whose story I haven't actually heard before, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks, man. I know you're super busy, so I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me on, mate. It's great to get on here. I've been listening to a few. I listened to Sam's one, and that was awesome. So great to finally get on here.
Yeah, cool. Hey, so what we typically do with these is, and if you've listened to a few, you'll kind of know this, is we kind of start with the story, if that's all right.
Yeah,
you're super young, right?
Yes, yeah, 21.
21, yeah. And bet way above your weight class for your age. I'm assuming the story is quite short, but like, how have you gone from school to here? What's that been like?
So it's sort of when I went into high school, I found a love for filmmaking. I think it was just through YouTube, through stumbling across some clips, and I sort of wanted to get into that. But you know, there's a bit of money that goes into that, and I was like 12 at the time. Yeah. So you know, I got mum's old point and shoot camera and started messing around with that. Started taking some photos, and then it sort of became all photos through high school. Like, that was my thing. I was really lucky to do a trip to Iceland with Dad, where he's like, oh, if you pay for your half of the trip, like, I'll take you there. We'll go photograph the country. We did like a whole like camper van trip around the country. I think we traveled 800 kilometers in one day to just get to the only spot that had clear skies for the aurora. And that was like, honestly, my favorite moment ever with a camera in hand. Yeah. That was so cool. So photos were really heavily my thing up until high school, even until my first year of uni, because I went into uni after high school. Dad's like, look, you may as well have that as your backup plan. Then you can try become a professional photographer, and you've got that to fall back on. So I went into uni with that in mind, and I was just sitting in class one day, and my laptop, the battery was so shit that it didn't make it through a whole class. And I'm just like, nah, fuck this. And that moment I went back, I bought myself a new MacBook, and I went for like one of the highest spec ones so I could edit video. Because I'm like, look, I know video is like a really good way to get into making money with my camera. So up until 2022, I'd never really filmed a video. And then I'd never really like filmed one for someone else until 2023. Yeah. Mid 2023, which is approximately when I started working with Sam, sorry. Yeah. And so Sam reached out to me after a couple of months. He's like, hey bro, would you want to come work for me? And we sort of ummed and ahed, and I did agree. But then we sort of figured out that I'd probably be a bit too entrepreneurial for that, and that would clash heads, and that I'd probably end up wanting to have like half the business at some point, which I can't go into it asking for that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, especially because I don't know, Sam was doing like 30, 40K at that point a month, and I was doing like 2 or 3. Yeah. But I was like, look, I know I'll be there soon. So we ended up coming up with a short form company that we did together, but we sort of focused on our own real estate thing and grew that up. And then it got to a point where Sam and I were pretty similar revenue-wise with the real estate. Yeah. And we were just out at Scott's birthday party one night, and he's like, mate, why don't we just merge businesses? I think he was a little drunk at the time. But I was like, you know what? I was actually thinking about that this week. I was like, wouldn't it just be so much easier if we were just working together? Because we had like a non-compete agreement in place where we wouldn't go after each other's clients. Yeah. But yeah, we just decided to make it happen, and it's been a bit of a process from there. And then obviously Sam was on your podcast.
Yeah. And that was where I found out about you guys joining up. Yeah. And
then from there we decided to, you approached us actually.
Yeah. And, it was a really funny one for me where I'd been thinking about this idea of like joint ventures and how I could add huge amounts of value to like businesses without impeding on their existing client base, just allowing them to like make more revenue, and how like we could leverage Digital Simple and some of the things that we know and some of our experience. And then like I'd been thinking about it that week, and then Sam came on the podcast and he was just like, yeah, and I'm merging with Graeme, and I was like, bink. And so I think I messaged you guys like 2 days later or something. I was like, I think we should catch up. And yeah, I mean, it's really funny how it's all worked out, because it's been something that I think's moved at like a really good rate. Like, it hasn't been super fast, but it also hasn't been slow. I think we're all kind of wired the same way, as we're like, We don't like to just fluff around. But
For sure.
yeah, I'm pumped. Obviously, it's early days, and we've only just inside the last week had first campaigns go live.
Mhm.
But already the level of like progress that I feel like we're making. I've actually got some new stuff to send through to you, to show you tomorrow morning. But
Yeah, perfect.
already the amount of progress that we're making there, and how cool I think that product can be is crazy. That end-to-end solution is such an interesting concept for the market, right?
Yeah, it is, because at the moment agents are doing that, but they're going to other people. They're not going to their videographer, their photographer.
Yeah.
So being able to do that all in one place, where it's essentially them just ticking a box or saying, yes, I'd love that when they're talking to Emily.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah, sure. And so what's that, and this is just like, I sort of know the answer, but just for the audience, what's that experience been like over the last few months as you guys have hired your first full-time staff member, you've hired your first intern who started today, like there's a lot of different things going on at once. What's that like as a 21-year-old? I remember having a business at 21, but I wasn't, I definitely wasn't doing any of that sort of stuff.
It's pretty surreal, like, especially given where I'd be if I'd stayed the course with university. Like, I'd be in the opposite position right now.
Yeah.
Where I'd be searching for jobs, and now we're actually providing jobs and building a team, building that culture, finding people who are ideally better than us.
Yeah.
And we can offer a better service to our customers.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think you guys' attitude to it's been really crazy. It's been wild to watch the level of like trust that you've had in my decision making and stuff like that too. It makes it real easy for me to be like, look, let's just, and in turn I can be like, I got this one, like I've got a bit of experience here, just don't stress about it. And I think that makes things so much easier. And so, I mean, like it is sort of what I expected is if I have someone on here who's 40, their story takes like 30 minutes to explain, and for you it's a little bit shortened. Like, can you just talk to me a little bit about the way that you see the real estate market, like the real estate videography environment in Christchurch currently, and what you feel Agentary brings that helps you guys stand out? How you've been so successful was basically my question.
For sure. Yeah. So what I find with the real estate video market is that everyone follows Australia and everyone's a couple years behind.
Yeah.
So if you look at guys like X Media, Desire Media, Flip Films, these guys are producing really, really cool content.
Yeah.
I should shout out Futura Avenue and AC Media because I've actually learned from them as well.
Yeah.
And these guys have been like revolutionizing the game over there.
Yeah.
With all the speed ramps, all of the quick transitions, the storytelling in the videos. And if you look at where they were a couple of years ago, that's sort of where the market's heading now.
Yeah.
So that's what we've sort of tried to do. We've tried to look at where Aussie is now and bring that into Christchurch.
Yeah.
With like with the content heavy property campaigns, getting agents' faces out there, lots of short form content, telling really good stories in the videos. And it's just, it's really taken off in Christchurch.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you guys have, because of that research and the way that you've looked. And it's funny you say that, because that was essentially where I learned how to generate leads. Was I looked at America and Aussie and what they were doing from a paid media perspective. And this is like 6 years ago. And I was like, I reckon I could just do exactly that and it would work here. And not all of it worked straight away, because Christchurch is quite conservative, but a lot of it clicked pretty quickly.
For sure.
What was it that made you, like, why do you think like that? Why did you look at a different market, and what triggered that?
That sort of came from like the creative side in my mind.
Yeah.
So I love the whole process. I love creating cool shit.
Mhm.
So I sort of just looked at where the coolest shit was coming out of, and that was Aussie. And like, it is very evident. Like, you look at the videos they're producing, and then you look at like America, you look at New Zealand, you can tell that they're leaps and bounds behind.
Yeah.
So yeah, just looking at that cool shit over in Aussie and sort of dissecting it, figuring out, hey, look, like, this is what they're doing that's different. How can I implement that into my content?
Mhm.
And obviously we don't have the same properties as Aussie.
Yeah.
Like, they've got $20 million, $30 million properties over there that they're doing. But there are parts of that you can sort of incorporate in like a $2, $3, $4 million property in Christchurch.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you're not going all out like they would in Aussie, because it just wouldn't look good.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
But again, it's like taking parts, and then maybe taking parts from like aspects outside of real estate videography.
Yeah.
So I've had a few agents send me stuff from like fashion companies and like from car companies, and we just sort of incorporate that into the videos as well.
Yeah, sure. How involved are the agents in the creative process when you're creating these videos?
It depends. It's all the way from 0 to like A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some who I really love working with, who I've been working with from the start, and they'll throw me ideas, but they're also like, hey, look, like I understand you're the professional, you are the creative mind. I'm giving you complete creative control here.
Yeah.
And that's just awesome because that's when we produce the best work.
Yeah.
We bring in ideas, they bring in ideas, and we just merge them and create something special.
Yeah, sure. I know we have the same thing here where it's like we actually want your thoughts. We just don't want to be like ring fenced in. You know,
Yes,
we
yeah.
want if you've seen a campaign, you like send it through and we'll pull 10% of it or 20% of it and we'll do it in a way where it works. But it is nice when you find those people that get that you understand the nuance of what you're doing. They just want to be like involved in that creative process and hands on. Nice. Yeah. And talk to me as well about, I mean, one vivid memory I have of being young and being self-employed is the overarching feeling that I had. And I suppose maybe I look at like your group and there's a lot of you that are all out there getting after it. But for me, when I was doing it, it was quite isolating. I didn't really have anyone around me that could really relate to what I was doing. And the people that I did, I wound up becoming really good friends with. But do you experience the same thing? Like, is it tough talking about work and the challenges? I mean, I know you do really big weeks. You probably have mates at uni who do like 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
Like, what's that like?
That's a really good question because obviously I've got a lot of mates from the gym through business. We've got the young founders group and everyone's in like a similar group as well. But then I've also got all my mates who are just graduating from uni now. So we're in very different stages of life. But you know, like there's different, like I don't have to chat about business with them, and it's almost kind of good to have like a different direction I go in with each group of friends. Like I love basketball, and so do a lot of my other mates. So sometimes with them, it's just like, you know, we're just playing sport. We're just like playing basketball, shooting hoops, playing PlayStation. Like it doesn't happen very often with the PlayStation. Right? You know, but it's good to like sort of switch off. And just have fun, right? But then also like having those people who are my age and we're young and we're business owners, that's so good. Having almost that support group there.
Yeah, sure. That was probably essentially what I was going to get to. Is like, what's it like having people that, I think something that you guys have done, I pointed this out when you said that you're merging. I think I said it on the podcast with Sam, but I definitely said in our conversation afterwards is, I think you will not regret this because I've done this all on my own and like up until this point. And I don't think I wouldn't change it, but I just look at my buddies that have got business partners and I've seen bad examples, i.e. like businesses, the partners are like breaking up and things like that. But I've also seen a lot more of good examples, which is they've just got someone that they've just been through every shit thing with. Like they've sunk a digger on site or bowled a house with asbestos in it or whatever. And there's just been like someone there with and you get to share it rather than just like sitting at home and being like, oh God, my life's over, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so valuable, eh?
Yeah.
There's definitely been a couple of experiences like that recently and even in like personal areas, but it's just good to have someone there throughout the day and it's like it's not the end of the world. You'll get through this and like we can both be there for each other, right?
Yeah, for sure. Talk to me about, so obviously there's a lot of people that are in real estate videography and there's been companies that have come and there's been companies that have gone. What do you attribute you still being here and still being a company that's growing and taking on new business and things like that the way that you are? What do you attribute that down to?
Getting like really focusing on honing in on the craft. So I know there was definitely the point where I sort of like ramped things up quite excessively was June last year. I sort of did like a third the revenue of the months prior. And then I was like, okay, cool. Like I've actually got time to step back, focus on my craft, produce some really cool shit. And from there, I did like a really cool video and put that out. And I just got so many inquiries about that and brought new customers on board. And it's just been hectic ever since.
Yeah, right. It's really interesting, eh?
Yeah. So,
yeah,
definitely focusing on the craft, but then also like the customer service. Like it's not just a number. Everyone like is going to have a unique experience working with us. Which is just so valuable. Yeah,
sure. What do you put like just base work ethic? What role has that played in what you've done?
Huge.
Yeah,
huge. I think it got to end of last year like between 110, 120 hours a week. Which is just hectic. And it almost got to that because it had to.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you book in the shoot and you got to get that video turned around. So, you know, the only way to do that is to stay up later and get up earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not willing to work hard, you won't be able to actually build that customer base the size you want it to be.
Yeah. And often like those periods are sprints. They're not marathons, you know?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
And that I think is the thing that people don't think about. It's like, if you can just bite down for a month, the next month's fine. I mean, I had at the start of this year, we had some people away. I'm setting up this stuff. I've got another thing that I'm launching. I've got a heap on. And so you just like start work real early and finish work real late, and you do it for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then those 4 weeks are over and you're like, I probably steal my nights back now. Like I still keep waking up early, but that's like it alleviates faster than you think.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, and feel free to tell me if your story is different, but like I don't open my laptop like begrudgingly, you know, like I'm never like, oh God, I gotta, you know, I'm like, fuck, I wouldn't mind just like, you know, hanging out with everyone and just chilling or whatever sometimes, especially like with the baby and shit. I'm like, it'd be real cool to be, but once he's asleep, I'm like, sorry, Jen, I kind of got to go. And she's just like, I get it. Yeah.
I've never thought of that, but that's like perfectly describes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I've had some shit jobs and I've spent heaps of hours there. Like I remember once when I probably would have been like 15, maybe 16. And I was working as like a kind of like a larder chef at this restaurant. And during the school holidays, I think it was 84 hours one week in the kitchen. And it was the worst week of my life. Like I just smelled like oil. I hadn't seen sunshine and, you know, the whole week because you're just in like UV lights in a kitchen. And if I think about that versus a week where maybe the hours would be the same, maybe they wouldn't be. I don't really track them, but it's easier. It's a lot easier.
Sure.
Your day doesn't drag. You're doing stuff that's like mentally stimulating that you're passionate about. It really helps you get through it.
Yeah. Well, like I look at those big months, and while it was really long, I don't think there were definitely times where I was like, fuck this. But it wasn't like that the whole time. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you know, I'm looking forward to this. Like, you know, you have something at the end of the tunnel that you're going to look forward to, right? Yeah. And for me, that actually came with getting the house and getting the Porsche. Yeah. Which is quite good. Yeah. But, you know, it was also like smaller things like, okay, cool. Like I've got a PT session booked in this week. Yeah. And during that period, I didn't go to the gym. Yeah. I love the gym, and that was something I had to sacrifice. But, you know, having those PT sessions booked in, that was almost my light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. So it can just be small things, but you don't constantly feel like that when you are in that period. Yeah. And I think this is the other thing as well, is I think base human comfort or humans like base desire for comfort is way too high. Like we would rather spend like 8 hours a day strained at work to get 16 hours of doing whatever we want. And like we would view that as a reasonable exchange, if not the 8 hours being too long. And you'd get home from work and you'd be like, that's a really shit day. Whereas like, that's not that much time. No. Like all I reckon you need to run off is like 1 hour of like wholesome, like family, girlfriend, whatever sort of time, and an hour for yourself to like work out, do some stuff like that. Outside of that, you don't really need any more in a 24-hour window. No, like, no, not at all. And if you do, it's like, what for? Like, what to eat? Like, scroll Instagram reels? It's like, what are you going to do with it? That's so, you know what I mean? And like, don't get me wrong, like, I sat down before you came in here because we just recorded 7 videos before this. I've been sprinting all morning, and I was like, I'm going to watch like 5 to 10 Instagram reels and just giggle for a little bit because I need to pep up a wee bit. Like, you know, like that's all good. But I think like you only need that much. You don't have to do it for 2 hours. You don't have to binge watch Netflix for 4 hours at night. You don't have to do that stuff. There's nothing. People are doing that aren't doing it wrong, but I just don't think they realize sometimes that there's an alternative that's maybe a little bit more fulfilling. For sure. And it is, for me, it's chasing those goals. Yeah. Yeah. That's where the fulfillment comes from. And obviously you do need time to step away from that. You do need to like work on yourself, your relationships. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be as much as some people want, as you're saying. And I also think as well, like, and this is something that I probably didn't do as well as maybe you'll be able to, and you seem like your head's screwed on a lot better than mine was when I was 21, but I massively deprioritized everything else. Like I was just like, because I'm a lot more introverted. Like I had mates from school and stuff, but like you know, they were going in like a pretty hard different direction, which kind of helped separate things out a little bit. I was sort of just like, man, I just kind of want to like buy some cool cars and just do like, for me, my car that was kind of like your 911 was
I had a 911 before this, but I bought a C63, one of the naturally aspirated V8s, and like I'd had a photo of this on my wall since I couldn't even tell you how young. I got like the exact car. It was amazing. And like I actually just at that time cared more about that. But I didn't care more about it because I cared about like more than relationships, because I cared about a car more than relationships. I cared about the fact that like I'd thought about buying that car and the possibility of buying it was completely absurd. Like it was impossible. There was no way. And then I could go from impossible to I'm picking the car up in the space of 3 years or whatever it was. And I'm like, that's a really cool thing to train your brain to think like, is you might have an idea that seems completely crazy, but there's no reason why after applying yourself for 2 to 3 years, it couldn't just be like real.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of how I've always thought. Even in uni, when I had like negative $100 in my bank account, it's like, why can't I be achieving the goals and like driving the car, living the lifestyle that I want to? And yeah, I guess that was sort of when I first thought about the car. Back in uni, and again, I had like negative $100 in my bank account at one point. And you know, I just made the decision and decided that's what I was going to work towards. And it wasn't just working towards the car; like it was working towards building something that I enjoy, like with the business. Getting the house as well, sort of having that security. But just building something awesome.
Yeah, sure.
And the car just came along with that.
It's a byproduct.
It is.
You trip over it.
And like it might be what you strive towards at the start, but even along the journey, like you'll just realize that the journey is the fun part.
Yeah, honestly, like I can't. It would probably be 3 years ago. It was when I was in the C63. I drove a car pretty much the same as mine on this Avid trip we're on, and I was like, I am so into this thing. Like I'm in love, and I'd wanted an Audi R8 real bad at the time, and they were like the same money, and I was like, I this thing's cooler. This is more me. All right, it's epic, but this is more me. But at the time, I looked at the money versus and I was like, there's just no way. And then, like I said, you trip over it. Like Dan called me and he's just like, found one. Here's the price, and I was like, that's mint. I'm on. Like there was no like you accidentally happens.
Exactly.
You know, it's such an interesting experience when you get to live out stuff like that you haven't like, you know, it's 100%. So talk to me about then, we've kind of gone over your story, a little bit about how you think and things like that. Talk to me about probably where to next for you guys. Like, where are you heading? What are your goals? What's the plan?
Yeah, that's a really good one. So obviously we're incorporating the ads, and that's a big part of what you're bringing into Agentary. So again, it's becoming that full service real estate marketing company, not just your local real estate photographer, videographer. So that's a big part. We want to build a team, get people who are better than us. So we want to train up shooters, photographers, videographers, get some editors in there. And then obviously we want to expand as well. So Queenstown and Auckland are on the cards first. Queenstown's a really interesting market because, you know, you don't really have anything under $1 million there. Which is really interesting because in Christchurch, you probably, you know, you smile when you see you get a $1 million listing in your calendar. Whereas down there, that's like a shack. But the thing is, the prices down there are pretty out the gate for what we're offering. So the base prices are more expensive than our higher end stuff. And then it goes to like almost 4 times our price.
For a real estate video?
For real estate videos. And photos,
I mean, I've always wanted a Queenstown office, so I think that's worth,
for sure.
Especially if they're paying that kind of money for a video,
Absolutely. So it might be like we get the team set up in Christchurch. We get it operating where we can sort of step back one of us or both of us, and then maybe one of us goes to set up in Queenstown, one of us goes to set up in Auckland. One of us stays in Christchurch, maybe, who knows. But that's sort of something that'll present itself. But it's definitely the next chapter for us, I think, and really looking forward to it.
It's a huge advantage you have over me when I tried to do the multiple office thing, because I went too early, which I'll obviously be able to work with you guys around timing, but I went too early. And I had great people here in Christchurch, great people.
For sure.
That I wasn't even a manager, you know? Like, so to then expect the people under me to be managers is absurd. And they actually went real hard. And you know, some of the ones who put a lot into that period of time were, you know, they got stretched to their capacity and they stepped up. They did a really good job. And a number of them are still here and they're continuing to grow, which is awesome. But I went too early. I didn't give them this like stability, security, any of that sort of stuff for them to be able to like thrive and really take it over. And in return for that, I kind of wound up hurting both. Like I went up to Auckland, I did a bit of business, but for some reason I decided that I wanted to live the life of Riley and buy like a 911 and rent. Me and my buddies, the place we rented was like $2,000 a week. It was like this $4 million home in Ponsonby. We did all this real stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was just that I hadn't had a season really of losing. Like I doubled my business 4 years in a row or something. So I actually kind of rolled into that year thinking that I was pretty untouchable. I don't think there's really anything that can go wrong here. I was wrong. Turns out you can increase your revenue by 50% and go from making a really reasonable amount of money to losing money in the same year. Turns out you can do a lot of stuff wrong really easily. So yeah, I think having an extra business partner would have made that a lot easier. I look at my friends that have got that are in multiple locations, and one person tends to be the one who's like a little bit more, I'll be everywhere all the time and live out of a suitcase. I don't really care. The other one who's kind of bouncing around cities all the time and training people and doing that sort of stuff. And the other one's a little bit more Christchurch based, and it appears to work for them. I think it's something you guys will be able to figure out when you go to. But Queenstown makes a heap of sense to me that, you know, it'll be less commoditized. The properties, like the vendors and stuff, because it's so cool, they'll get the cool video thing. It's something to discuss, but that'd be really cool.
And those people are willing to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the vendors here aren't. They don't see the value.
Yeah.
And even some agents here don't see the value. But, you know, the guys down in Queenstown, it's standard.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not getting video in Queenstown, something's up, right?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I think that will be a really good option. And, you know, it's only an hour and a half flight. Hour?
Nah, less like
45 minutes.
Yeah. So it's not. I mean, it's hard. The planes never land. It's a real annoying. But outside of that, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Or 3-4 hour drive.
Yeah. Nice. Another really interesting question, just to pick your brain a little bit, maybe for a real estate videographer or something that's listening. Where does the market go from here? Because the trend is obviously like shorter and shorter and shorter portrait, like all that stuff's kind of coming through. What do you see next for real estate videography?
It's going to go back into storytelling.
Yeah.
And it already has. Like, you look at the guys in Aussie, that's where they're taking things. You know, it's become so commoditized where people are like, oh, I want like the day to night transition. I want the speed ramps. That everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, like there's guys out there teaching this stuff for free. And anyone can go learn it. Anyone can become just as good as anyone else.
Yeah.
So it's actually the skills that are harder to teach, like the storytelling, like being able to get the agent to show up on camera and have a really good presence. Like, it's hard to teach that.
Yeah.
So that's where I see it going. And that's sort of where I'm sort of starting to skill myself up in.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you can learn it, but it's harder to learn.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to be more valuable.
I see that as being really comparable to the way that I view marketing. Is like there's the difference between someone who can click buttons and set a campaign up technically correctly, and someone who can identify why a campaign would perform well or not perform well, and can shape it, right? And that often comes down to messaging, which is probably my version of storytelling for ads, or like, you know, like what's your base user experience here and what's the goal outcome and how do we align those two things? And your video is kind of the same, right? Like, what's the journey we're trying to take someone on here? What are we trying to say? I think the more that you can incorporate your skill, the more reps you get in, but also the harder it is to mimic as well. And that's probably the cool thing is like, you know, someone can learn how to speed ramp or do something like that. They can shoot in a way that suits portrait video. They can start to kind of look. But if you're constantly innovating, pushing your product forward, it becomes really hard to keep up.
For sure. It's understanding the why, right?
Yeah.
You know, it is really easy to replicate it, but it's the why.
Yeah.
So you will see a lot of these newer guys, they will do all that cool shit. It'll not make sense. It'll be stupid. Like they'll, you know, most people wouldn't really get the technical terms, but they'd just do stuff that doesn't make sense to a videographer.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, once again, exactly the same as advertising. And like, I was talking to someone about this earlier, and I was like, everyone can just see what we do all the time, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because like you could see the outcome, but if you don't understand the reasoning behind the decisions we make, I'm so open with it that if someone approaches us and they go, hey, I'm currently working with an agency, will you do me a strategy document? I'll go, yeah. I'll audit their ads, and I'll give them permission to send it to the agency.
Yep.
I'm like, I'll tell you everything you're doing wrong. I don't care. It's all good, because the why is the special sauce. That's how you control outcomes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's been a guy who has been copying my videos almost to the T.
Yeah.
Like he will do the same effects, the same audio, and it still looks shit.
Yeah.
And it is the why. It's that you don't know why you're doing that. You just see that I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And you're trying to create the same thing.
Yeah.
Which that's how I learned.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's how I learned. But you have to get the understanding of why you're doing it, and not just how to do it.
Your for real estate videography, you have a unique challenge as well around your clients don't pay. So your clients have to kind of act like your salespeople almost and pitch the vendors on it. Do you do anything to help them navigate through that?
For sure. Yeah. So we've got a whole presentation that we take the agents through.
Yeah.
And it sort of understands the value to one, the agent, and to the vendor. And the value really is there for both.
Yeah.
So like the agents are getting that marketing for themselves. So it's beneficial for them to sell better packages to the vendors.
Yeah.
And then, the vendors are getting more eyeballs on their properties. So they're more likely to get more people in the auction room, get a higher price for their property.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we take them through why. Again, it's the why. It's not just here's like a couple reels with your property video. It's why and what to do with the reels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I suppose we're really stepping into controlling the distribution and all that kind of stuff for them too, so it becomes a little bit more done for you. And I think that becomes easy. We traditionally, and we have a few agent clients that we work with. And we've been really lucky with the ones that it's been over time, but we've traditionally found it very hard. So I take my hat off to you for managing to balance that. It can just be a challenging audience. I think it's one that's really, it's perceived as low-hanging fruit. And for some reason, everyone wants to run a real estate marketing company or be a real estate videographer. But I think nailing it is a whole nother tier to, so you guys have done really well with that.
For sure. And that's actually what I started with, real estate marketing, when I dropped out of uni.
That's right. We were talking about the other day.
Yeah. And it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't think that was my passion.
Yeah.
I kind of just saw, the guys, like, I'm sure you're familiar with Iman Gaji. Like, I saw what he was doing and I was like, man, like, he's making good money. So I jumped into that, but I jumped into it for the wrong reasons, right?
Yeah. And so I suppose probably that's a good sort of segue through the next step is like, what is your reason? Why do you do this?
That's a really good question. So
I'm going a little heavy.
Yeah. So there's definitely like a couple of, it's not just one answer, right?
Yeah.
So like I've always loved working with cameras.
Yeah.
Like since I was like 12. So that is a big part of it. But also I love the idea of like growing a business.
Yeah.
That's what I was studying at uni. I was studying BCom to start my own business.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I dropped out is because I was like, shit, I'm learning from people who've never started their own business.
Yeah.
So I would learn faster if I was to do it myself, right?
Yeah.
So there's definitely like the aspect of loving the creative side of things.
Yeah.
Loving to create cool shit, but then also creating cool shit, but in the business sense.
Yeah.
And creating like an environment that people want to come into and be a part of and work with.
Yeah, I get that. It aligns very well. It aligns like very similarly with me. And can you talk me through, I mean, you mentioned the gym before, and that's something that I've talked about a little bit on this as well. What's your relationship with your own health been through this whole mix, and how have you included that in what you're doing, like these bigger weeks and that sort of thing?
For sure. So it definitely, in the bigger weeks, it's taken a back foot.
Yeah.
But that's one of my goals this year. So in terms of my goals last year, I got 92% of the way to the revenue goal.
Yeah.
So I was really close to hitting that. I got the Porsche, I got the car. I got the Porsche, I got the house.
Yeah.
The only goal I didn't hit or come close to was my fitness goal.
Yeah.
Which was to bulk up to a certain weight and body fat percentage. And I hit the body fat percentage. It was just the weight that I didn't get to.
Yeah.
And that was a sacrifice from working so hard, right?
Yeah.
So for me this year, we've got to put a chef for the flat.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Yeah. So he'll come in on a Sunday and he'll do all our meal prep. So we'll cook up 50 meals for the week. And we've got exactly the ingredients, exactly the macros that we want and that we need for our own fitness goals.
Yeah,
Which is
wow.
awesome. So
What a wild idea.
yeah, I don't know if you saw it on my story the other day, but
I
I
didn't.
had 10 kilos of steak cooked up in the kitchen. It was like 2,500 grams of protein.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, so that was pretty hectic.
Yeah, wild.
So that's one way I'm working towards it.
Yeah.
And
I suppose that's kind of like, sorry to cut you off,
No,
but
go
just
for it.
like, because I always struggle with that, right? And I'm really lucky because
Mhm.
Jen's real supportive of like, I have all these wild eating things that I do.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she just tolerates my bullshit. I don't know what it is, but like, I'll come home and I'm like, all I'm eating for breakfast now is salmon and eggs. And then I'll come home and I'm like, I don't eat breakfast anymore. And then I'll come home and I'm like, I need carbs in the morning. And then I'll come home. Like, I just go
Yeah.
through this. And she just like listens and just
Mhm.
sorts it. It's the best fucking thing ever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
prior to that, I'd struggled with food. So I'd
Mhm.
been really good at going to the gym, but I've been really bad with food. If you can create consistency around that, that's what I was going to say with the bulking up thing. Is you obviously you would have regretted not going to the gym, but like I bet you wouldn't have eaten enough because I know what I'm like when I'm busy and I don't eat enough.
100%.
But if you can remove that decision out of it, like I don't even take lunch. I don't know. I actually take it back. Some guy helped us tweak our lighting today in exchange for me shouting him lunch. So I ate lunch
Nice.
today. But that was the first lunch I've had probably this year. The first time I've taken a break for
Wow.
it. Yeah, like I don't. But I just like jam it in the thing, heat it up,
Mm.
smack it. I'm back on.
Yeah.
Sub 5 minutes. I'm back, and I like that. I like being
For
able to
sure.
stay in rhythm. I find I tire out after lunch because I stop. I'd rather just keep moving. And so removing that, like, what am I going to eat today, or what am I going to do? I think that makes things so much easier.
It does. Like I've been getting meal prep since maybe 3/4 of the way through last year.
Yeah.
And it was a huge change because I was crashing from not having enough energy.
Yeah.
Like I would go until like 4 or 5 o'clock at night without eating for the whole day.
Yeah, yeah,
And that fucks you.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you really can't sustain off that.
Yeah.
Or I can't anyway. I'm sure some
Yeah.
people can.
Yeah.
But, that was sort of, I identified that and I'm like, look, I can sort this by getting meal prep.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of finding the right meal prep company for me. And I sort of found that a lot of them, either they don't have the right ingredients for me.
Yeah.
Or they're just not big enough.
The challenges is like there's not enough like meat.
Yeah.
It's you wind up like smacking 2 of them at a time, and then you're paying like $30 every time you eat lunch. So you're like, well, I could just get Uber Eats for that, and then you're like, I don't want Uber Eats, and you wind up stuck in this cycle. I've done it, man. I've been there. Yeah,
That's my exact thought process.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have got that chef, and
That's such a cool idea.
yeah. Like when I've told people like we're getting a chef, they're like, don't get too far ahead of yourself, don't get too big headed. But then I explain it to them, and they're like, oh shit, that really does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And how many people do you live with?
5.
Yeah, right.
Including myself.
Yeah, right. And so you just divvy up like 1/5 of the cost. You'll just go buy your own food, then they cook it.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get the chef to start shopping for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's mint. I mean, you have to buy the food anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, it works out to be anywhere from $10 to $15 a meal, which is really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm paying that for meal prep, but the serving sizes aren't what I need.
Yeah.
Because I've got to hit like 4,000 calories to put on weight.
Yeah.
And you can't just have like a couple of small meals in a day and get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're on the road all the time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, that's smart. That's smart. I mean, I did carnivore for ages, and if you want to spam calories, just eat lots of steak. It's so easy.
Yeah.
I was up to like over 1 kilo of steak for dinner every night. That was just what I was eating. I was like working out. I was like, that's too much food. Like, that's too much food. But
that's what I sort of do find sometimes is that you can feel really full all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just heaps of fat.
Yeah.
Stay lighter on carbs because you just like you'll bloat up. But
100%.
that's interesting, man. That's wild. That chef thing. So you said it works out about $10 to $15 every time you eat.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind me asking what a chef costs an hour?
We just put an ad out on Student Job Search.
Yeah.
So it was $35 an hour.
Yeah, that's mint, eh?
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And wild.
But I
I
mean,
have never thought of that.
you could go anywhere from like 35 to 50.
Yeah.
Probably even more if you wanted like a top of the line chef who's going to cook your meals in front of you. But
Yeah. But I suppose like even if you look at it from like that's valuable for just the average household.
yeah.
Like that's something that would be helpful. People get like cleaners in, that's real normal. They get this. Or we had a nanny for a bit, and like they would help do like some basic stuff just to help Jen with like meal preppy kind of things. And yeah, how wild. That's cool. Nice, man. And so goals for this year?
Yeah. So I definitely need to like clarify them because I set way too many at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But it's there's a couple. So a lot of it's about more just like having a bit more time for myself.
Yeah.
Because I did see what I got like when I didn't at the end of last year, and it's not something that I want to constantly be in a state of.
Yeah.
So it's like take one trip per quarter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to head over to America. I'm going to head over to Europe,
Yeah.
and then also Aussie as well. So
Yeah.
that's going to be quite cool.
Yeah, nice.
And then, it's also maybe taking one night off per week where I'm not doing a twilight shoot.
Yeah.
And that can just be either a chill night, or it can be, I go into the gym and make sure I get into the gym that night. And then also one weekend off per month
Yeah, nice.
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so something like that. Also making sure I hit the fitness goals this year.
Yeah.
So I want to put on like 5-10 kilos
Yeah.
and stay like a similar body fat percentage.
Yeah.
So, getting into the gym, having the clean eating,
Yeah.
is how I'm going to get to there.
Yeah, nice.
And then obviously we've got the financial goal with the business as well, which it's a big step up. But as with my goal last year, that was the same thing. It was like my goal was essentially 10x what I did revenue-wise the previous year.
Yeah.
And I did 92% of that. So
Yeah.
pretty much got there. So it's a similar increase this year. Obviously, we've got a team now. It's not just me.
Yeah.
So, we want to try reach as far towards that as we can and
Yeah.
hopefully exceed that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm looking forward to doing my bit.
Yeah, mate. Oh, we're so stoked to have you in here.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah. Hey, and one other thing I wanted to go over that I've got stored in my head. I'm just checking time. We're doing pretty good. One other thing I wanted to go over was what role has, say, like having advisors or people that you trust impacted on your journey so far?
Oh, mate, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think if I was to go do this all blind by myself, I would fuck it up so badly. Yeah. And especially like, we had that situation recently where just having you on board and you were able to help us handle that.
Yeah.
Like we would have handled that really differently.
Yeah.
And we might have gotten, I don't know if you want
affected negatively
yeah,
by
yeah. I don't know if you want to keep that
There's
in
a bit
there,
of nuance, there's a
Yeah.
bit of nuance.
But, we would have handled that differently. Like, and, having you on board, someone who's been through a similar experience and knows how to handle that, that's the only way you learn how to do it. You either learn through that or you learn through fucking it up.
Yeah, that was a freak example. Like in the years that I've been doing this, and I'm with you, let's not discuss it too specifically, but in the years that I've been doing this, I haven't had any example that dramatic before. Even my internal team that helped me handle it were like, holy shit, what is going on? And yeah, I think it's just one of those ones where like my cage just wouldn't get rattled because I've been there a few times. So I was like, I got this one. Don't stress it. But it is just that thing where like stuff like that will continue to happen. And the challenge that you've got, which is the challenge that I sort of had as well, is you're really comfortable being yourself and who you are, and some people aren't going to like it. And so if you were just being a chameleon and doing what everyone else wanted you to do and driving a normal car and not talking about going big places and doing big things, you probably wouldn't have these same problems. But someone will look at you and be like, nah, look at his car, he can afford it. And things like that. And it's like, it does draw a little bit of it. Like there is a negative thing that happens with that. Sure, I believe genuinely that 4 out of 5 people look at that sort of thing and they go, that's gangster, that dude's the man, I love that shit. And I know that's the way that I view it, and they look at it and they go, he must work really hard. I mean, I had it at MPD the other day. I got out of my car, I was filling it up, and I walked into the thing, and some guy just goes, that's a sick car, I bet you worked really hard for it. Yeah. And I was just like, I did. And I was like, that's the best fucking compliment anyone's ever given me about something like that.
I've had the same as well at the petrol station as well. So. Yeah.
I was like, what a dude to say that to someone. Like, there's nothing you could have said to me that would have fulfilled me more about this, you know? But I know also you do work with like David as well. And I know that you've taken a lot of inspiration and are somewhat connected with these guys over in Aussie and things like that. You seem to be someone that's really embraced that, like, investing in being better thing, which I think is important to touch on. Is you sort of make it sound like you just can watch some trends and work real hard and get there, but I think you're smarter than that. I think there's more to it than that.
I've spent more on education than I have on the car to put that into perspective, and people sort of can estimate roughly what that is. But I've invested a lot into learning and making sure I'm the best at my craft that I can be, and also going in the right direction as well. Like having that mentorship, having people keeping you on the right track. I just wouldn't be at the same place if I hadn't done that. Yeah.
The returns, what's the Alex Hormozy quote? The SME 500 or whatever? The returns are crazy, and I've, to be fair, like what you've done smart is you've probably spent more oh no, you wouldn't have spent more on it. Yeah. But for your stage, you spent considerably more on advice than I had at your point. But I'd spent a lot on fuck ups. A lot. A lot and a lot and a lot. Like if I tallied that number up, we'd all cry. So I think it's a more efficient way of doing it. I feel I've gone full the other circle now. I have an advisory board set up. I have all these sorts of things because I'm like, I need all of the advice that I can possibly get my hands on. But yeah, I think I got torched a little bit. I think there was one year where I would have spent probably circa $100,000 on advisory stuff just in a 12-month period. And I just didn't really get, like, I just did it wrong. I just did it wrong. And the people were good people. Like, I have no hard feelings against them, but it was just like, I just don't need an accountability partner. Like, I need real advice and stuff that I can take away. And like, through that period of time and all those things, no one was ever like, oh, you should like put yourself through like a leadership program or something. Or like, you should learn how to train a team, or you should learn how to, they're all just like, it was interesting. So I think that put me off it for a while, but I've gone full circle and I think it's really important.
Yeah, and that's a step that I look forward to facing as well.
Yeah,
as we grow the team.
Yeah,
and bringing on that leadership and expanding to different parts of the country as well. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. I think both you and Sam have an exceptional mindset. I sent like something that I really noticed the other day was I sent through some designs for the base of our AA creatives, and I was like, turns out my design team is better than me. And your response or Sam's response was like, I can't wait to be able to say that. Yeah, and I was like, that's such a cool way to view shit, because it's I'm so used to it now. I'm so used to my guys being better than me at everything all the time. I'm like, I'm pretty good, pretty handy in strategy and sales, and outside of that, I get whooped everywhere else. Luke can maybe chuck in some examples of some videos that I've shot or something like that, but I definitely don't have that sorted. But yeah, I think that's a positive mindset to have. I think that investing in yourself, and I think that being open to advice, and then also just like wanting other people to be better than you is rare, especially at someone your age.
For sure. And I can confidently say that I think we've found that with our new hire.
Yeah.
I think he's really talented.
Yeah. Hey, mate, I'm so pumped for that. I reckon that's a screamer. When we talk about like light at the end of the tunnel stuff, like you mentioned earlier, that challenge that we have versus where we've wound up now, I think things are gonna be pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have a closing question for you. That time's gone so quickly. I have a closing question for you, and it's one I ask everyone. If you were to go back and do your time again, but you could do one thing differently, what would it be?
Get shit done quicker. Just act faster. And, like, you can sort of look back and say, like, look, I have taken action pretty quickly. But there's so many things that I could do better, right? And, everyone's going to look at that in retrospect. But just get shit done, focus on it, invest in people to help you get that shit done. When I got my PA Taylor, I probably should have done that months in advance. And I probably should have got her on more hours sooner. But, I can see that now, and I can see that if I did do that, I'd have way better systems and everything would be running smoothly. And I probably wouldn't have got to the point where I was having to work so much in a week. So, yeah, just get shit done quicker.
Yeah. I could not agree more. Especially when I look at my early stages, the amount that I was held up out of the fear of like overhiring or like messing up and it costing me money or something like that. And then I wound up overhiring and it was fine. And I've messed heaps of stuff up and it's cost me heaps of money and it's fine. Like you the fear is like, it still happens anyway, you still get it. So it's like, just move, just act fast. There's a saying that I think is a really good closing note, which is skeptics sound smart and optimists make money. And that's the way that I'm trying to view things at the moment, is like, if you view it as in terms of what could happen that's good rather than what could happen that's bad, you're always going to wind up better off.
For sure.
Cool.
That's a great way to end it.
Yeah. Awesome, mate. Hey, thank you so much for coming. That's been heaps of fun. If anyone wants to get a hold of you, check you out, where should they find you?
Probably not Instagram, actually. I deleted that at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But just get in touch through the Agentary website.
Yeah, cool. Sweet. Awesome. Hey, thank you very much again for your time. And thank you to you if you've listened up until this point. Make sure you check us out on socials. We clip up things and post them everywhere. Follow us on Spotify. If you want to watch this, you also can on YouTube. And I will catch you on the next one. Thank you very much.